Hello, everyone. My name is Calvin, and I'm an alcoholic. And it's really good to be here tonight, And this is a real special occasion for me to talk at this group, because this is like almost like my home group. I got a group in New Jersey, but I'm here every Tuesday night since the pandemic started, since the COVID started. I've been here. I got here through Teresa, right? Teresa was the first or the second speaker at our group when we shut down. And Teresa had such a powerful message. She talked about God in a way, she did Weed or Nothing. And she talked about that thing in a way I had never heard it put out there before. And she didn't go line by line, and we're kind of a line by line group, She just made it come alive, and then I knew. And so she said, no, we do this thing up on Tuesday night up in Canada together with Ali and them. And I said, I'm gonna go check it. And I've never stopped coming. And I connected in with some of the most beautifulest people from all over this country through this group, everywhere, and I go to another group, and there's a lot of people here tonight that I've been going since the pandemic started too. It's a group in Rojo. It's a men's meeting. And I'm going to this, to be 70, 80 of us every morning, 7 days a week, and they're there. And these men are the most profound men I have ever been with, and it's amazing. And I watched, there's a guy on here tonight, when I first kind of got there, a little bit after I got there, his son had something happened to his boy. And I watched them men just pick him up and carry him to. And I mean, there's something serious happening, And I watch him on here tonight with a smile on his face because he plugged back into this thing. And I've seen the power of God working through that group to help this guy, help my man, And when you see that, there's nothing like that. The one alcoholic loving another. I've never seen it no greater than I see it in Alcoholics Anonymous, And, I was thinking about today, and I really wasn't thinking about this, but I said, okay, God, this is up to you. Because if you don't give me the words, I got none. I have none. Because I'm a guy that talks from his soul. I talk from my soul. I don't know how to talk from the head so much. All my life I didn't talk from my head. God didn't show me how to open that heart up now. He done busted it enough. He ain't busted, but I done busted it enough. And I've been through enough pain. I think pain cracks your heart open. We're real afraid of pain, being uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable right now, not so much because I'm talking, because of, my baby boy. I've been struggling with this thing for 4 or 5 years. And it's like a roller coaster ride. Some days it's good and some days it's bad. And I don't know, and I'm not struggling to a point where it's disturbing me, but you can feel the undercurrent, because he is my baby boy, and I got 6 other ones, but Jordan taught me how to care. I thought about really what's interesting, right? I remember in early sobriety, my oldest daughter, she got locked up for some speeding tickets or some kind of parking tickets or something. So her mother, my first wife, she told me, Calvin, go get her. It was like Sunday or something. I'm thinking, what, they gonna let her out Monday, And that, and they only wanted $100, right? She said, Calvin, go get her. And I went and got her, you know what I mean? This boy, because the journey I've traveled here in this program, from a cold iceberg that only was selfish and self-centered and only cared about himself, unthawed. And now I care about people. This boy, I spent $30,000 on lawyers, and it was like nothing. And I think the difference in doing that, and to find the middle spot, because I went from one extreme to the other. I went from not caring, like I'm caring, but I'm just going through the motions because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I seen my parents do, and I'm just doing the same thing I seen them do. My heart is not into all this. I'm just doing it because I know it's the right thing to do, and I don't want anybody to say, look at, he a bad father, because he don't do it, But I come in here and y'all taught me how to love, right? And I think about that today, and I think about, lately, I'm gonna back this thing. I'm gonna unring this bell. I was thinking about how, that when before I got to you guys, and I remember I've been raised across the street from the biggest Black church in Central Jersey. It's a couple thousand members over there. So I've been there since a kid. I was, we'd go down in the cellar, and when I was a peewee, and watch, the Street Stooges and, the Little Rascals and stuff. We'd be down in the cellar watching this stuff and stuff. Little girls giggling at little girls giggling at you, and we just be down in the basement, and the older people be upstairs doing their thing. But as soon as I got old enough, like I got about 12, And my mother give me money, and then I'll steal a little other money that was around, change, and here and there. And she sent me to church, and I go in one door because she could see me, and then go out the other door, and go play the pinball machine. And because I knew it just wasn't for me, and I always wanted to be with something that was happening, right? I remember in my house, my home, we were raised in. I just got rid of it not too long ago. I was raised since I was 2 years old. And then Sunday morning, we wake up to gospel music playing. Grits cooking, sausage being cooked. And you could smell it going through the whole house. And this feeling of family was in my home. And I think about my mom, and I think my mom was born in 1919. My grandfather lived with us. He almost touched slavery, right? This dude, man, I didn't like my grandfather. My brothers did. There was 3 of us. I was a baby boy. My brothers was crazy about my grandfather. I ain't like this dude, man, because he always just would rat on me. He would snitch me out, right? My mother, he had a lot of stress on her, and he'd come home and she'd come home and he'd tell everything. He wouldn't talk to me, but he damn sure would snitch, right? He'd tell my mother, right? And my mother, she didn't take play, man. So he was, you know what that chap did today? My mother's name was Viola. They call her Ola, right? You know what that chap did? And boy, she started throwing them lefts and rights, man. So I was thinking, this dude here, man, he ain't cool, And but I know that day, I remember when he died. My brothers and crying. I'm thinking, see you later, dude. You know what I mean? Because I never made peace with none of that. Until I got to some kind of treatment, came into rehab, and came into the program. Did I put that to bed? Did you pick? You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. You can't pick your family. And I was just a peewee. So all these things I just stuffed down in me, and and then I meet a little girl, and and I started smoking a little pot, but that only made me silly and want to eat everything. And so it made me paranoid after a while. I'd be sitting under the tree with some guys, and I'm like, what you looking at, dude? I get all like that, and the dude ain't doing nothing, man, because I'm already like, badly, so it don't take much. But when after I end up, somebody end up with my wife, I end up with somebody else's wife, my first wife, right? All kinds of stuff. And she should have left. She should have left. I was a nice guy. And after all that was over, either I was too much man or I wasn't enough man. All that thinking, all that thinking. Man, my mind just kept thinking, and I want to make it, I want to prove to the people around me on the job and wherever else, I'm a man, and so I'm from one extreme to the other. And when I picked up that drink, I'm 21, 22 years old. I didn't care what you thought no more. Drink was not my problem. Drink was my solution in the beginning. Till it's turned to start cutting me in pieces. It started chopping me up in little pieces. And then I go to try to stop, and I can't. And I can't. And I really don't want to. I don't want to, but the consequences are getting up. I've been on this job since I was a kid. I went there at 17 years old. I was on probation because I always used to steal the neighbor's car. So I'm on probation. So, and so the probation officer telling me to get a job. I go get a job and nobody hired me, right? And I'm just looking for a little part-time job just to keep this dude off my back and stay out of this jail that the judge told me to give me 18 months suspended sentence from Yardville, little jail down here. And I think, okay, I'm not jail material, And I think about my mother, right? My mother was, we be going to court, and her and my middle brother be going there, and I'd be in the back seat, and they say 3 of us going up there, and 2 of us come back. She get there and beg, just do nothing. And I remember she telling me one day, you'll have a kid just like you. And I got him, just like his daddy, and he got a big heart, and he's a good kid, good man now, And I think about in recovery, I've had the opportunity to experience everything that I have done to somebody else. Everything that I've done to somebody, I have the opportunity to experience it myself. I think today it's a gift when that can happen. It's not a curse, and it's not a bad thing. If you're at peace with yourself, it's a great thing when you can be at peace and you can see. When you can see somebody who did something, or took some of your money, or slipped some kind of way, or did something sneaky to you, and you can say to yourself, "Oh, that's what that felt like when I did that. That's what that felt like." So I got an opportunity to experience that, you know, and to keep coming. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I drank for 10 cold years, and I drank hard and fast, you know, and nobody wanted to be bothering me or done, right? I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and the first time I come, I just want, you know, not lose my job. I wanted the wife to come back. I wanted all these things, to fix all these things, and I was a manipulator. Everything's outside. So I started to, you know, I ran to this treatment center because I had good insurance. And I stayed there for 28 days. And what happens is once you walk through the thresholds of Alcoholics Anonymous, your drinking will never be the same again. Never. I remember that I got out there, and I remember the counselor told me, you'll be back because you ain't hit the bottom. They taking me out to meetings. You know, they bust us all out to these meetings at night. And I'm at these meetings, right? Recovery all around me. 50, 60 people talking about recovery. I can't hear a word they say because I'm so self-absorbed. I'm so full of myself. That is the core of my disease, is the selfishness, because I'm very selfish. And, you know, ain't nobody, I might not be much, but I'm all I think about. You know, selfishness is the worst thing. Oh my God. You know, and I didn't even know. You couldn't have told me I was selfish because, you know, I would, if I had some money, everybody had drinks. I would come to my house, everybody could eat. So I thought, I'm not selfish. No, I wasn't selfish like that so much. And that was, I'm buying friends anyway. You know what I mean? But I would take the romantic part of the person. My wife, I'd just leave her there with the kids and just run and come back home 2 days like it was nothing. I didn't care. You know? And when I come home, she would cook breakfast for me when I come home the next day or so. That's the way I had. And because I kept fear in a person. You know, I kept fear in a person. And eventually somebody, you know, like I said, that didn't work. You know, and so now I'm running to this treatment center, and I'm there. And I'm in the counselor telling me, you ain't gonna make it, so you'll be back, you know, if you don't die. But I know that's the first time I had been separated for a drink for 28 days. And like I said, once you walk through the thresholds of Alcoholics Anonymous, your drink is never the same again. And I would go around meetings drunk, and I would go in there, and I see people sober that I thought was dead. And then by the end of that next year, the middle of, that was in March of 85, by July 26th, July of 1986, the day I had my last drink, I went back to that treatment center, and I got in the front. And I knew if I don't get this, I'm gonna die. Because I would sleep anywhere. They had diseases that was killing people out there. I ain't never been loyal to nobody. I come in here, and I don't want to drink no more. But neither I want to do what you tell me neither. You know, I want to do it my way. And I got a good job, so I'm making six figures. I make a lot of money. I buy a lot of outside stuff. You know, and I dress the outside up. And you know how that goes. It's not an outside problem. It's not an external problem. It's an internal problem. But where I come from, the town I came from, they only just don't drink and go to meetings. That's all they hammered. These guys was loving, good guys, man. I'm not knocking that. They kept the lights on, they kept the coffee hot, and they kept their hand extended. And they would stay after the meeting and talk with you and all that. But they, you know, to take us through the steps, there wasn't nobody really to. And we go to step meeting and talk about whatever we want. We go to a big meeting and talk about whatever we want. You know, so it wasn't a lot of like that kind of growth going on. But I was getting better, but I don't know, I ain't gonna say I was getting better physically. But spiritually and emotionally, I got worse. I could act like a nice guy because I knew how to do that. Act like a nice guy. But if you squeeze, I said the other day, if you squeeze an orange, you ain't getting apple juice out of it. You know what I mean? And you squeeze a lemon juice coming out, and I was a lemon. And so you squeeze, and that was coming. But it was getting to a point that I couldn't live, like they say, you can't live with the drink or without the drink. Well, I couldn't live in recovery with 2 years without, I didn't drink, but I couldn't live with that kind of pain. That's the same pain I got before I even picked up a drink. I was living. I had a soul sickness. So I started, and I'm always I don't have a half measure. Either I'm in or I'm out. You know, either I'm gonna give you my all, or I'm not gonna do it. And I remember I had a sponsor. I got this guy, he was sponsoring me. He said, Calvin, you're a hell of a egg. So you take people to meetings, you do everything. You pick people up, you talk after the meeting. He said, but your life sucks. And he was right. He was right. You know, he said, sober people don't live like this, man. They don't do this. You know, they don't come here and start chasing girls. They don't come here, chasing Atlanta around the coffee pot. You know, they don't do that. You know what I mean? They just don't do that. You know? And but I didn't know that. I had one way of living. I learned about sex and being with a woman 13 years on the street corner when somebody knew less than me. And I brought it into adult marriage. And sure, it was going to fail. Sure, it was going to fail. You know, the men in AA taught me how to become a man. They taught me how to become a man. But messing around, this guy told me, he said, so I told him, you know, he talked hard to me. He said, man, you live like a pirate, dude. And I said, man, okay. After he finished beating me up pretty good, I said, what can I do? He said, we're going to work from 4 to 9. I know you trust God. He said, we're going to work from 4 to 9. Now, you can trust God and keep him cold out your life. Cold out your life. You know, cold out your life. He said, I know you trust God. You know, or you wouldn't have kept coming. You wouldn't make the coffee. You wouldn't chair the meetings. And that's what I did. I was busy enough. I was fellowshipping my butt off. Steps nowhere to be found, but I'm fellowshipping. He said, we're going to 4 to 9. You're going to meet me at my house. And I started meeting him at his house. And he took me through them steps, and I started to get free. And me and Lana had got together by then. And man, our house was upside down. You want to see some trouble? Let be no spirit in your house and you married to another Jew. Oh my God, 2 selfish people in one house. Oh Lord, talk about fire. You know, sometimes I come home and the women got together with Lana and they done threw me out. They didn't put my clothes out. All the women from A can't put all my clothes out. I come home, I just ride. I mean, we had a horseshoe backyard, like you drive around. I drive around, see all the women. I just keep on driving. Come get my clothes later, you know. But they didn't put me out, man. They shoot. It was like, so I knew you can't keep living like this. And I've been accustomed to living like this. You know, and so when I was ready for Tony to take me through the steps. And when he did, I started to get better. I stopped arguing. I stopped fussing. Lana must have cared because she's picked up them steps and we started to get quiet. We started to change and grow. I remember diapers used to come down. I ain't never seen diapers. And even in my drunkenness, I seen diapers in recovery. You know what I mean? Because the girl couldn't, not that we were fighting, physically fighting, but the girl couldn't sleep, so we argued all night long. I got quiet. And Lana picked up those steps because the old man told me, he said, I said, could me and her make it? And he said, yeah. He said, only way you make it, live more spiritual principles. And I said, why is that, Bill? He said, because we're nasty people without. And I can't speak for nobody else. Without spiritual principles for Calvin Sexton, I am a nasty person. Even when I want to be nice, even when I'm trying to be nice, it's never that I'm being nice. It's always an angle or something I'm trying to manipulate and get my way with. But I started working those steps and I started finding that ease and comfort. And in 1993, I found Joe and Charlie. 1992, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I'm sorry. And they changed my life. How arrogant and cocky I got. You give somebody 6, 7 years that book with nobody else around knowing it but you. Oh my God, we started meeting. The meeting got packed. And, oh my God, you know what I mean? My ego took off. I'm ego driven. You know what I mean? I'm ego driven. I'm full of ego and full of pride. That's all I know. I don't know nothing else. You know what I'm saying? I remember I started going to the jail, right? And I belonged to one of the biggest home groups around this way. It was a speaker meeting, right? And I would leave my badge on when I come in the jail, come in the meeting. I had my big yellow badge on with my picture that I just get off the jail so everybody can see me. You know, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. Look at me. You know, look at me. Now you look back at the things that we do, that I have done in sobriety. Not drinking, nothing. But I just kept coming and I kept trying to practice these principles in all my faith. But what happened was, you know, I started to get a lot better. I started working and started making promotions on my job and starting to move up and things starting to happen. Me and Lana messed around, bought a little house and, you know what I mean? And now I'm working too much, so I ain't doing the meetings like I'm supposed to, you know what I mean? But I'm sponsoring a couple of guys. I'm making it on, but you know, I'm trying to raise these kids and, you know, I'm trying to do this daddy thing, right? So I'm doing all, but my program, so I don't know balance. I don't know how to square myself off. Either I'm too much in or I'm too much out, you know? I'm going to 2 meetings or I'm not going to enough. I don't know how to center myself. You know? And God forbid I let somebody else help me. You know? God forbid I let somebody help me. But what happened was, I've had many surrenders in this program. The first surrender was to drinking. The next surrender, knowing that I was an ass. That was the biggest surrender. And I had to be brought to my knees in this program. And that's what happened. I was brought to my knees in Alcoholics Anonymous. About 12 years ago, I went to a group called Design for Living. A guy had told me I'm around meetings and I go in a meeting, I could sound good. Oh my God, I could talk to lingo, right? I knew to talk. You know what I mean? I could just spout this stuff out. Or I could spot people like me a mile away now. Oh God. Man, oh man, I get you too. You think I would walk me and JC walk water together, man. I come and spout it out like that. I could spit it out, right? Wasn't near me like that. But I was still moving on that job and moving everywhere around me because I was a lot better than what I was. A lot better. About 12 years ago, I had a surrender. I went to a group and I seen people there on fire. These was young kids. I was old enough to be their grandfather. Had been in here before they were born. And they had them picked up this book. And they was doing, and they wasn't no big book thumpers. They wasn't no people coming around. If you don't do the book like this, you're gonna blow up. You know what I mean? If you don't do this, you ain't sober. You know, you ain't do this, you ain't that. And you know, they telling lies and you know, that I said, oh my God, I couldn't take that myself, right? So I go to a meeting, the big book thumpers would come at me with the whoa. I'm like, man, you know, back up. You know what I mean? Back way up, you know? And this group wasn't doing that. There was love and service. And they were talking about this book in a way that went inside my soul. And the guy took me back through them steps. And I had 25, 24, 25, 20-something years ago. And he took me back to them steps. And I caught on fire. And it wasn't me running around here spouting out words and doing all that. Whatever I came from a center place now. It came from my heart being cracked open. It taught me how to love, really love. I thought I had an idea, you know, but I had no clue about love. Knowing that my relationship with you is the same relationship that I got with God. They're the same thing. If I'm running around talking about I dislike this one or dislike that one, my relationship with God ain't that tight because it's the same relationship. I see more death in the last 3 months than a man should see all around. And I buried my nephew's funeral was Sunday. 51 years old, had prostate cancer and COVID at the same time. Couldn't handle them both. I would go up there to see him. He'd be in that hospital. I'd go up there to see him. And I'd sit down with him. And the nurse would start telling me, you know, you can go right down to almost to the operating room with him, right? You know, why are they saying that? I ain't never heard nobody do that in no hospital. You know, I go on home and he, you know, go downstairs and they do. I'll ride the elevator room to the pre-op because they knew nobody else was going to come. They knew nobody else was going to show up. And I stayed there. And when you're present in your life. You know, you present, you where your feet are at. You see so much. I see this lady bring her baby in there. Because I'm sitting there, they're gonna take her right into the operating room. And the baby carried baby, she had to let go of her kid. So them insurance could take care of them. I'm sitting there with my nephew, he crying. You know, they just juiced him up, right? But he's sitting there, he said, what's wrong with me? Huh? I said, man, they juiced you up, dude. His daddy, nobody. Sons, nobody come down. His funeral the other day was almost 400 people. please give me my flowers before I get out of here. Please. Come see me if I'm sick. You know what I mean? My God. And I'm not saying nothing, but this is just what Alcoholics Anonymous taught me, because, I felt badly at this in the beginning, real badly. My midwife, I call her, I've been married a lot of times, right? My midwife got breast cancer, and my daughter took care of her while I was running. And I'm in recovery. We had broke up before I got it, and I'm saying, running. And she wanted me to come home, and I didn't. So I'm not sitting here bashing nobody, because I ain't made all the right decisions in Alcoholics Anonymous. But I got better. Through my inventory, prayer, and meditation, I got better. I had opportunity to be there with my dad when he died, holding his hand. Be there with both of my brothers. And my mother, I took care of. My brother, my brother right over me, he had prostate cancer. Same thing did my nephew this time. And like I always say, I come there and he was nasty. My brother was, because he just wanted to be alone. So he pushed everybody away from him. And he was a good guy. In every family, there's one guy, there's one of us that's going to take care of the rest of the family. There's one guy. We all got him. In every family, there's the one who's going to take care of everybody else. The rest of them are going to be goofs off and stuff going to go wrong. But there's that solid one. And that was my middle brother. When me and my older brother would just do the hucklebuck, my oldest brother was going to do the right thing. My middle brother. And I'm there, and he would run off because he used to just being alone. He was a loner. And I called my sponsor. I said, I can't take this, man. This dude's nasty. My sponsor said, he wants you there. And I would stay there, and them doctors and nurses would say, you be here in real time. And I would work down every time I would go to leave, but time I would leave. And I would stay with him 3-4 hours a day. And I would rub his hair, and I would kiss him on the forehead. By the fourth day, he raised his head up for me to kiss him. If I would have left, I would have never experienced that. That's why I talk about being present. When he was there, I was at the funeral home so much. My nephew committed suicide, so much that I would tell them, and I asked the directors and stuff, I kept doing on first name basis. I said, how y'all doing? He said, business is dead, Cal. That's what they would tell me, right? Because I've been so much with them, And my sponsor, he was on this last time I talked on this meeting, he was here with me. He died 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And me and Lana went to his wife's, we gave a surprise birthday party. He was failing. He got COVID real bad. And he was failing. And he would call me every day. And I'd tell me what them doctors said. I ain't trying to tell him what to do. I just wanted to be there for him. And when I went to the funeral, Bernadette, we was all there, And I know all his grandkids. I never met most of them, but I knew him because I knew him. And I could tell him all something intimate about each one. He said, my pop told you that. I said, yes. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous give me the ability to do. And I'm going to talk a little bit more, and I'm going to go on to shut this thing up in a few, but everything today is about my consciousness. Where do I live consciously? Am I consciously awake? And everybody operates at their level of consciousness. Not that we're bad or good. We just operate at our level of consciousness. And as I keep raising my consciousness, like I used to do all this, like the big book, it says, do a nightly review. I do. I look over my day and I say, and I go on to bed. And I used to go, check the box, check the box, check the box, check the box. No more of that. Because my consciousness, if I do something to damage you, I know. I ain't got to check a box to figure it out. I know I said a slick word to you, I said something nasty. I know. Because of my consciousness. I am consciously awake in my life. If me and my wife get into it about something, I learned not to clean the stove when it's hot, though. I learned that part. But as soon as I can, I'm going to make it right. Because I'm not going to let my connection with God, because that is my connection. And every morning now, I go to bed about 10 o'clock, right? 10 o'clock. So At 10:30, I'm in the bed. So I'm up about, 4:30, I wake up. And I don't get up, but I wake up and I just stay there and I pray. And sometimes me and God have one hell of a time in the morning. We have one hell of a time. Me and my high, we just wrestle around and we just talk. I fuss at him some days. I mean, we just go at it, man, And then I come downstairs, it's dark, and I let the dog out. And I get on my bike that's right here behind me, right? And I ride my bike for 25 minutes. Then I sit down in my chair and light my candles. And I go into meditation for 20, 25 minutes every day. Every day since this pandemic, I've not missed maybe 4 or 5 days. I've not missed in 2 years. And it takes me, and it's like you ever drive a stick car? And you downshift? I'm a high wired kind of guy, right? It's like a downshift. And everything just slows down. It just slows down. And I'm sitting here and I'm in low gear and I'm just looking, I'm thinking, I'm amazed. My head rocks backwards and forth and I ain't moving fast. Everything's moving like, just like I'm in a whole nother gear. You know what I mean? And I love being in that place. I love being in that place. I tell the guys I work with, the guys I sponsor, I tell them, I'd rather miss my breakfast, and I'm a big dude, than to miss my meditation. My friends come to get me in the morning to go drag racing. I tell them, I can't go. You got to give me 10 minutes. Because I'm going in there and sit down somewhere, and I'm meditating before I go out that door. And the guy was telling me I sponsored this guy, and he's a great guy, right? He's in Costa Rica. I think he might be on the meeting. And he asked me, he said, well, I meditate in the middle of the day. I said, really? Now, I don't try to tell nobody when to do it, but I'm telling him, I said, yeah, man. I said, like, I don't know. I said, I kind of set my navigation system in the driveway, not when I'm halfway on the trip. Because I don't want to get into the day's calamity. And I ain't set my path. I haven't set my path. And I can sit here and be dead honest with you about who and what I am, like the 6 or 7 steps talk about too. I'm not afraid of who I am. When it talks about the good and the bad, I'm not scared of either one of them. I ain't trying to sit up on, I've been here 35 years, and I'm not trying to sit up on no sponsor throne and act like I got it going on, because that will kill a person like me. Because my ego would love that. Believe me, I'm ego driven. It would love me to do that. Look at me. Look at what I look at. No. I need to tell you who I am so I can live. And it feels good to know I can just be honest like that. Always wanted to be honest like that. But I know the people I was around, you dare bear not, But I got some people now I can bear my soul to. And some of them on this meeting today, I met them through Zoom. I done met some real hell of a people through this Zoom thing, man. That I love dearly. I want to talk just a touch about my oldest daughter, One day she came into this program and she called me. She hated my guts for about 5 years. She didn't talk to me, man. And for some months she was a kid, because I wasn't with her mother. She couldn't figure out. She wanted me with her mother, and that wasn't just gonna happen, man. We've been together, been apart 30, 25, long time, right? And I think I guess ain't happening, right? So whatever it was, and probably, I was a jerk too, so all that mixed together, you know what I mean? so she like, and she was a jerk too, so she wasn't perfect either. So, but we just, and I wanted her in my life because she's my oldest daughter. One day she called me and said, Dad, I'm suffering from a disease of Alzheimer's. Can't call her brother or mom, she called her dad for this whole number of Alzheimer's. And I told her, go tell them women what you told me. She did. She's 9 years sober now. And she worked this thing. This girl made, and money ain't what it is because it's not external, but she done did all right for stuff like that. About 3, 4 years ago, she had to have emergency surgery in Milan. She lives in Pennsylvania. Now I got cataracts, right? I can't see nothing. I got cataracts. I'm me looking like going out there at 10:30 at night, looking down a major highway, and like me looking through a shower curtain. You know what I mean? But I know I'm going to my daughter. My daughter called me. And I know she's scared because she ain't never had to have no surgery and none of that stuff. And I get there. If something had popped loose in her belly button, they're just going to push it back in, but it's going to be real painful. So they had the IV running. I get there about 12 o'clock at night. Her and her husband there. Right? And she looked at me, and they're going to hit her with this Oxycontin because it's too painful. Too painful to do this without some kind of medication. And she looked at her dad like she did with your little girl. And I just nodded my head. And she said, go ahead, because my daddy said so. Go ahead, because my daddy said so. That's the healing of this program. That's what them 12 steps, that's what has given me this pathway. That's why I won't stop doing. And that's why I won't play with them. I don't think, I do my best. I do my best. And I make mistakes. I had this guy fire me, right? Sponsor. I haven't been fired a lot of times. I haven't fired people. You know how that go. I'm doing this a long time. So, and people, you just do. But for some reason, this guy told me when this guy would fire me for some reason. He just did. Usually it don't. You know what I mean? Because sometimes when they fire me, they come back. You know what I mean? Just wait. You don't know what's going to happen. They come on back. But this guy bothered. It really struck me. Because what it was, he was 40 years sober. He came in when he was 20. He was 60 years old. Because my son had a degree. My oldest boy, Calvin. That wasn't it neither. But I knew I was dragging him. And I see how harsh I could be with somebody. When I'm trying to tell you about something and you're going, and I keep trying to, and I don't know love and service at that moment, see? But I need to see that to become a better sponsor and a better human being. So I'm steady being taught. Everybody I work with teaches me how to become a better human being. And when I get a chance to, I'm going to make it right with this dude. Because I could see the error of my way through a self-examination that I was dragging this cat. And he had a lot of respect for me. So he let me drag him a while. And you don't want a person like me to start dragging. But I will never, ever drag a person again. I promise you this. I will never drag another human being again. I keep learning and keep getting taught every day. I can sit in my house and be at peace with myself like I never had peace before in my life. I always thought it was that these cars, this house, or the a beautiful woman, all these things would give me peace. Now, one of them things I ever did. I come here with a bunch of drunks and I work the steps and I get a good sponsor who can guide me and I trust, and I get better. With 35 years, I listened to a sponsor closer today than I did when I was new. I need each and every one of y'all, man. I walk shoulder to shoulder with y'all. Or you'll never hear me say, I sponsor quite a few people. You will never hear me say, I'm a grand sponsor. You'll never hear them words come out of my mouth. Because I walk shoulder to shoulder with you. Once you do them steps, you clear. I sit with Ali, sometimes we talk, I straight up open my heart. John on me, I open up my heart. With these guys, I open my heart up to them. Because I know the Spirit works with these guys. I can see it. I can see it. Bob Vazance helps me a lot, right? I talk to Bob, right? Bob up in Minnesota. Bob always tell me, one day I was juggling at my sponsor, and I'm gonna say this to close this thing up, but I was juggling at my sponsor, right? But he was on the other side. We was on two different sides of the political spectrum, I want to say. And so I had some choice words to say at one point, and he had something. And one day I knew I had to up on him, right? I did it. I had him. I had him down. I had him in the headlock, right? And I poked the bear good. And I went and talked to Bob, right? Bob was answering. I said, Bob, I'm poking. And I poked my sponsor. He said, not you, Calvin. I said, yeah, man, I poked him good. Bob told me, he said, you know what? He said, for 53 years of sobriety, he said, I can't find nobody that got what I want almost, He said, my sponsor has 20 years less than me. He said, and I treat him like he got more time than I do. What he was letting me know, Don't disrespect your sponsor. And I went right back. And I know what he was saying. You ain't got to sometimes draw the whole picture for me no more. You ain't got to hit me with the full hammer if I get it. And I went back to my sponsor. And I said, Barney, I said, look here, man. I said, I was wrong. And I said, I'll never do that again. And from that day to the day he died, I never did that again. Self-examination, prayer, and meditation. And I became a little free, and a little freer, and a little freer. I don't know if I touched anybody today or hope I helped somebody, but I'm glad to be here. And I'm just kind of glad that I might not have to do this for a while. Thank you guys for listening, man.